So welcome everyone. It's good to see you today. Now, so this week's topic is ego and conceit. That's pretty interesting. So today it's about the three types of conceit, or the three types of discrimination, we can call them, about the self, about ourselves, about the ego. The three types of conceit are: the first one being the conceit of superiority, second one being of inferiority, and the third one of equality. So the first two are quite obvious, quite clear, and probably very well known. Like sometimes we feel better than others, sometimes we feel worse than others. Depending on your personal makeup, depending on how your brain functions, how your mind is wired, you have to see for yourself which type you are most predominantly, and then apply the appropriate antidote to that. And the third type of conceit that is probably less obvious or less well known, which is the conceit of equality. We're all equal. We're all the same. Okay. So the first one is I'm better than others, better than the one I'm comparing myself with. Second one, I'm worse. And third one, I'm the same. All three are incorrect. They're not in alignment with the way it actually is. They're just simple perceptions of reality. They're a personal kaleidoscope that we're looking through at the world, a personal pair of glasses that we look at the world through. For example, let's take the first type of conceit, superiority. I am better than others. Do any of you have any experience with that feeling? Sure, right? Yes, of course, yeah. Like we all do have some experience with that feeling, right? It's a bit more difficult to admit to the first one because it's just so frowned upon. It's so strange when I feel like I'm better than you, I'm better than someone else. It feels weird to say that, actually. It feels weird to even think that aloud in my mind. But very often we feel that in a very subtle way. We might feel that we're better than others. Like, for example, you go into a meeting with your best friend and he brings his friend that you haven't met yet, and you get your kind of first impression of that guy, and you immediately put the guy into a box. You say, well, that kind of guy, he's weird, he's kind of that hippie type. And that would then imply, I'm not that hippie type, I'm kind of a little bit better, so I can judge him in a way that I can judge him, I can see what I don't like in that person. That is already that conceit. Seeing something that we dislike in other people. It uplifts us. Because if we would recognize that everything that we dislike about others, we carry ourselves. If we would truly see that, it would become quite difficult to actually judge others. Because it's very much like a mirror. Like every shadow that you see in another person is basically your own kind of shadow. It's hard to swallow. But it's wonderful practice. If there are things that you really, really dislike about others, like that make you emotionally upset. Like for me, for example, it's when I see people hanging on their phones in cafes, right? So you have all these cafes here in Phuket and everyone is on their phone. People don't really talk with each other anymore. It's just staring into these phones. It makes me feel upset. I feel upset when I see that. I'm like angry at that. But if I would be totally honest with myself, I'm also looking into my phone quite a lot. And I don't like that about myself also. But when I see others doing it, it's really obvious. But when I do it myself, then it's business, it's important. It's something else. I really have to do that now because it's really, really important. It really matters. But actually it doesn't. Like I have to check my emails, but I already checked them today. So I have to check them again. Something important might be there, and it's kind of just a poor excuse. And I think everyone would have such an excuse. They would all say that it's important. Go through the coffee shop and say, hey, why are you looking into your phone? Why are you not talking to your husband? Or to your wife? Because it's important. Everyone would say it's important. And so I see that in others, and it makes me upset. And it precisely makes me upset because I know that for myself. Certain habits, certain things, like being dishonest or something like that. I don't like others being dishonest. That's because I'm dishonest with myself. I have been dishonest many, many times in my life. Being dishonest with my own practice, the way I feel about myself, the way I perceive myself. Very, very dishonest. The mind is a very dishonest thing. And so when I see dishonesty in others, it resonates with my own dishonesty, doesn't it? If my dishonesty wasn't there, if it wasn't something familiar, I couldn't even see it in others. It would be kind of like non-existent, like a baby looking at an adult. It wouldn't see any of that stuff. It would just see an adult, just as it is. Not too much thinking about it. Doesn't go into too much resonance with that. Or like a cat looking at you, or a dog. They just like you, mostly. Unless it's one of the soy dogs here, the street dogs, and they're quite aggressive, then they don't like you. But usually animals are quite open. They don't have these preconceptions about others. They don't compare themselves much with others, probably. Yeah. In the complex way that we do, at least. And so feeling that we are better than others, is that actually true? I am better than another person. You might be better at doing something. Let's say you are a Muay Thai fighter, and you're really good at this. I'm not, so you're better at Muay Thai. You would defeat me in the blink of an eye. So you're better at a certain skill. Yeah, but that doesn't mean that you are a better person altogether. And very often that's the confusion, right? We have a certain skill, and based on that skill, we think that our whole person is better. We inflate ourselves based on a single little thing that we can do quite well occasionally. And then we feel it boosts the sense of self, makes it bigger. We can use these little things that we're good at to boost our sense of self. But in a similar way, we can do that with negative things, with negative traits. Oh, I'm so bad. I'm a bad person. I'm not good enough. I see all these other people around me, they're obviously good enough. Everything they do is right, always. So it makes them right people, and it makes me a wrong person through and through. Like labeling, judging someone as a criminal or a bad person, a terrorist, for example, yeah? So taking an actual example, like he or she is a terrorist. That puts the whole being, which is quite a vast experience, into one little box, the terrorist box. My little perception that the whole being is a terrorist. Like everything about them is terrorist. When they're happy, they're a terrorist. When they are sad, they're a terrorist. When they're in need, when they are begging for forgiveness, they're a terrorist, still begging for forgiveness. The terrorist is begging for forgiveness. We see the terrorist in all they do. Might be a loving father, a caring mother. Still, it's a terrorist. So a human being is extremely complex. There's an infinitude of potentials to every one of us. Infinitude of emotions and thoughts and states of being, modes of existing. An infinitude. Then saying that one person is just one thing is absurd. isn't it? We forget that there is a whole plethora of things to every living being. And occasionally there might be hate and anger that is very strong in someone and very often expressed. It doesn't mean that person lacks other qualities completely. It's never the case. So it helps to remember that. This would be an antidote, to see very clearly, to see ourselves first of all. Well, how am I? If anyone would call me a terrorist, would I agree with that? If anyone would call me Tobi is an angry person, would I agree with that? No, I wouldn't. Maybe that person saw me yesterday while I was standing in line and I got the wrong email at the wrong time. I was just looking at my phone and I frowned. And that person saw me in that moment. And now that person thinks, oh, Tobi is an angry person. Tobi's kind of angry. He's kind of angry. Would I agree with that? Would it be correct? Not at all. Well, anger has manifested itself through my being in that moment, temporarily. It doesn't make me an angry being. It's kind of like a room and you have wind going through the room. The wind doesn't make the room. The room is still the room, whether a wind goes through it or not, whether it goes through it fast or slow, whether the wind stinks or smells good. It doesn't really change the room. So if we say that the room is stinky, would be incorrect. The wind that blows through the room is stinky, yes, that would be correct. Like the anger that burns in a person, that might temporarily burn in that person, that is an unpleasant state. And if it spreads, then it spreads that unpleasantness. It goes everywhere. That is accurate. I'm not saying that it doesn't exist, that there is no anger. I'm just saying that a person is not an angry person, but anger is a temporary state invading that person's space for a little while. And if we reflect like that, we can actually forgive ourselves and we can forgive others. And with that forgiveness, there is an ending of the idea that any one of us is better or worse, as that is wrong. Now you might come to the conclusion, yeah, but then if no one is better or worse as a person, then we're all equal, right? That is not true either. Like all of us as living, breathing beings, we're continuously changing. If you look around in this room, there's not one single body that is equal. There's not one single experience that is actually equal right now. There is an amount of worlds in this room right now. You experience the world through your lens, through your makeup, your conditioning. You through yours, and it's totally different. These are universes sitting in here. Many of them, many different types of universe, many different types of experience. And nobody knows the experience of anyone else. It's a very private thing. So in terms of what we are experiencing, it's not the same at all. It's not equal at all. We are all having different thoughts right now, different reactions to what I say right now. Not one and the same reaction, right? It's not that when I reach enlightenment, suddenly all of you reach it too. That would be awesome. Problem solved, yeah? Very fast. Just one of us needs to reach it, and all reach it. If I would be happy, you would all be happy too. If I would be sad, you would automatically all be sad too, in exactly the same way. But that's not the case, right? Now we can, however, say that just like with certain aspects that might be wholesome or unwholesome, that we might express, based on that we can say a being acts skillfully or acts unskillfully. We can also say that in certain aspects we are equal. Like all of us in this room right now, we all want happiness. We want to feel good. We want to be at ease, at peace, relieved. That is something we share. Every living being shares that basic desire for happiness and well-being. At the same time also we're all afraid of suffering. Nobody wants to suffer. Nobody wants intentionally. This morning I wake up and I just choose a day full of headaches and food poisoning and people criticizing me and people cutting me off on the street. I wouldn't choose that. I wouldn't choose an unpleasant experience. Like, I've been happy for a few weeks now, I could do with a diagnosis of cancer. That would really bring me down. Nobody chooses that. Yet these things happen. Right? And so we're all equal in that, we can say. In that aspect, we all fear suffering. We don't want to suffer. We're constantly busy avoiding suffering. Look, we're all moving all the time, right? This is the same everywhere in the world. Any living being that you put into a room, they will move. Why? Because they evade suffering. They try to get out of suffering. We're trying to make ourselves comfortable all the time, right? Mentally, physically. So we share that quality, we can say. We would also share other qualities such as emptiness or awareness. Yes. So something that we all have is consciousness. Yes. Even talking deeper, something that we all are is consciousness. You can take it even deeper. That essentially there is nobody there that is anything. All that is quite illusionary. It's a projection in the mind. In that we're also all equal, as in terms of experiencing our personalized illusion of me and the world and my path and this and that, my past and my future, my enemies and my friends, what I want, what I don't want, what I like, what I dislike. That's very personal. Very individual experience. So reflecting like this counteracts this idea that I am like that and others are like this. This fixed view of self and others, which leads, it's the basis of conceit. Basis of the idea that I'm better as a fixed constant. I'm always better than you. You're always worse. I'm always worse. We're always equal. No, but qualities that come through our being and express themselves in our being, they change continuously. So thinking like that helps us to relax, helps us to forgive, to understand ourselves. So I would invite you to have a look at yourself throughout an entire day. Look at how many times your mind changes direction. How many times your attention changes direction throughout the day. Even just 1 minute. How many times does your attention go from sound, to feeling, to smell, to taste, to sound, to feeling, to thoughts, back to sounds, etc., within a minute? All those of you who have some good experience with meditation practice already, they can answer that question easily. Many, many, many times. Probably in the hundreds. But if your mind is not so clear yet, you don't really see the minute little movements of attention, how it bounces around. Then it might feel like, yeah, maybe 2 times or something like that, if you observe. But the more refined your awareness becomes, the deeper you can see, wow, attention changes a lot. Now, if I would judge you based on any little point where your attention dwelt in the past minute, it would be totally inaccurate. Because the moment I judge you, your attention has already changed. It's already elsewhere. Maybe you dwell for a few moments on a certain negative thought and makes you feel negatively for a few minutes. And so there's this spinning around between the negative feeling and thoughts about the negative feeling. Then when you're in that, and I judge your entire being based on that little experience that you're making right now, it's totally inaccurate. An example to illustrate that would be the importance that we give ourselves also. The way we think that we are so important, and my life and my future and my past, it's so important. It feels so heavy, so real, so dense almost. And then contemplate like this. How big are you really? And think of the universe. Think of the size of the universe. Zoom in and out. Just our planet, just a city with millions of people in it. That there is this one little person walking through the city day and night. Is that one little person really that important in that city of 1 million or 2 million? How about a country? How about the planet? More than 7.5 billion people or something like that, right? So 7 billion people, I'm not sure. And then you. And then it's so blown up out of proportion. My own story seems to be the most important story amongst this story of 7 billion. This sense of self, being absorbed in the self the whole day long. What are your thoughts about? Mostly. Are they not about me and my life? Mostly. So my thoughts are about that all the time. Me and my life. Me not being mindful enough. Me hopefully getting more mindful soon. When will I reach enlightenment? When will that story come to an end? Hopefully soon, hopefully before I die. But what if, when I don't die, or when I die before I reach enlightenment, will I have a chance next life? Is there a next life? Oh my God, what does that mean for me? It's constantly about me, isn't it? No matter what kind of story you have, but it's your story in your head. And the hero is you in that story, the main actor. And as long as we're totally absorbed in that, we have no perspective, no realistic perspective at all. We forget that there are 7 billion dramas going on right now. More even. On that, and now again another perspective, on that little blue ball in space, which is in that vast galaxy of 100 billion whatever stars, not including their respective planets. Which is insane numbers. Which is that whole galaxy in a universe filled with billions of galaxies of that sort. The currently measured expanse goes something like 200 billion light years. Expanse, they found clusters of galaxy that look much like a nervous system in the brain or something like this. Galaxy clusters. Just absolutely insane. Have a look on YouTube. The currently known size of the universe. Let your mind be blown by that a little bit. And then again reflect on my problems. Like kind of zoom in and out. Do that in your own mind. Is there 20 million or so years of evolution on our planet and our whatever, these numbers are insane. Does that lead to me just sitting in a room ruminating how miserable I am when I'm actually doing fantastic? Is that the pinnacle of evolution? Just basically being overruled by an overly active imagination. We're hallucinating, we're dreaming our world into place. In truth, I'm just sitting in a room. That's it. That's it. It's very simple. Life is super simple. We're all sitting in a room right now. That's it. All the rest is fiction. And if we buy into that fiction, we start to build that sense of self around that fiction, which wants to be solid. Here is me. I'm a good me. I'm better than others. And so here you have that very simplistic view of the universe again. which is not a truth, it is not reality. It is just personal fiction. That's all it is. So it's always these little sessions here. They are part practice and part an invitation for reflection. You take this home with you, you reflect on it, and not just for a few minutes after class or so. Take it through the next week. See how it goes. Like, how many times are you actually experiencing those three types of conceit? I'm better, I'm worse, I'm equal, we're all the same. How many times do you experience either one of those? And every time when you're experiencing those, are you able in that moment to look through it, to see that it's actually not a reality, but to see that right now I'm deluding myself. I'm buying into self-made brain fiction that I'm better than others, and then have a laugh about it. And if you find that difficult to see right through it, pretend that it wasn't real. Just make that an experiment. Like, just pretend that what your brain says wasn't the actual truth, but just what the brain has learned to say. See it from that perspective in a playful way. Like as if you were listening to someone else's brain going on and on and on. You listen to your own brain going on and on and on about how much better you are or how much worse you are, and how that makes you feel when you go into these kind of thoughts. So that's the idea for this week, to just become aware a little bit about yourself, your sense of self, and how it goes into comparison, into the play with other selves. Where do you see yourself in the ocean of selves on this world? Where are you placed? Are you a good self? Are you a bad self? Yeah? Just having a look at this a little bit, maybe write a few notes, take a few notes, bring it along next week if you like. I encourage quite a scientific exploration there. Don't be afraid to sit down at night and take a few notes on how did it go today? What kind of different selves did I experience, and how was that? Is this really true? And so don't believe me because I'm saying so, because it's supposed to be a meditation teaching in Phuket Meditation Center from Tobi, the meditation teacher. Doesn't mean anything. But you need to look for yourself and see it, explore. See, does something like that really exist in me? And is it really true? See for yourself. Okay? So that's pretty much it. That's all that comes to mind for today.